Hello and welcome to the Behavioral Sciences Alumni podcast here at Arkansas Tech University. In this series, we sit down with ATU psychology, sociology, and criminal justice alumni to hear about their experiences, their career journeys, and what they've learned along the way, and any advice they have to current students who are exploring their own paths. I'm Grayson Roberts. I'm currently a psychology and sociology senior here at Arkansas Tech, and today we're joined by Stephanie Carter, who graduated in 2017 and is now working as a forensic interviewer at the River Valley Child Advocacy Center here in Russellville, Arkansas. We're excited to learn more about their story and how their time at ATU helped shape what they've learned today. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here with us. To start, could you tell us about some of the work you do as a forensic interviewer?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, I'm a forensic interviewer at the River Valley CAC. And to start off, I'd love to share a little bit about what a child advocacy center is, because a lot of people aren't aware of it, and it will better help explain what I do. But a CAC is a nonprofit organization that assists with child abuse cases. So we work with what we call is a multidisciplinary team, which consists of agencies like law enforcement, DHS, or nurses, therapists, and like that, to work from a team approach to best serve these kids and to reduce as much trauma as possible. So with my role, I interview children for these child abuse cases. So when a report goes to the child abuse hotline, it gets assigned to an investigator. Like I said, it could be with DHS, Crimes Against Children, or they could go to the police department and make a report. And then that investigator will reach out to us, where we'll set up a time for an interview where the children can receive advocacy. And they should be brought by a non-offending caregiver. We don't allow the alleged offenders on the property, but I will meet the child, bring them back to my room, where I will interview them. And forensic interviewers in Arkansas use what's called Child First Protocol. It's a research-based, non-leading, fact-finding protocol that's designed to follow the child. It's court defensible because we have to testify, in trial a lot of times, defending the way that we question children. And so I bring them to my room where we talk one-on-one. There's a camera that records us. That way, the investigators that are on the case are able to be present, but they're in a separate room. So a child isn't seeing a police officer come in with their badge and the DHS workers, and which can be really intimidating, but they're in a separate room. They're able to watch the interview as I'm doing it, and they're taking notes, and I'll take a break, and they will give me any additional information that I need to find out with the child. And then once that's over, I might have to go to trial. Sometimes it might not, be found true, or it might be just a precautionary interview. But that's, in a short way, kind of sums up what I do.
Yeah. So going a little more in depth, like going to the CAC, what does your job just kind of look like on a daily basis?
So it's always exciting. You never have the same day-to-day routine at the Advocacy Center. We are really at the mercy of the child abuse hotline. And with that being said, we also work on call. So there's always a forensic interviewer and an advocate that's on call, ready to come in. Child abuse doesn't stop at 5 o'clock or on the weekends. Sometimes there's emergencies that come up that we will go to the center to do interviews, and sometimes medical examinations for the children. So day to day, there might be a week where, nothing comes in for a few days, and I'm doing paperwork, data input. And then there are days where we could get back to back forensic interviews scheduled, where it's constant, and the day is booked. So it ranges. And then there are days where I might be going to trial or going to training, but that's basically kind of what it looks like sometimes.
Yeah. And I know on your explanation of like what a forensic interviewer does, you've kind of touched on this question already, but what do you kind of do like for your job at like a state level? Just is there anything else you would like to add? Because I know you said you go to trial, so what maybe that might look like, anything of that sort, just any extra notes.
Okay. So yeah, on the local level, I of course am involved in the cases that are happening in the surrounding counties. So our advocacy center in Russellville covers Pope, Johnson, and Yale County, and sometimes the surrounding areas will assist with. On a state level, I am a part of the forensic interview committee with the Child Advocacy Centers of Arkansas. So that is a team that gets together every other month or sometimes monthly to just work on best practices for forensic interviewers and for advocacy centers. I also recently joined the Child First faculty team. So Child First is the protocol that we use, like I think I mentioned. And so I have joined the team to help provide the training for upcoming interviewers. And these interviewers can be employed at child advocacy centers, but that also includes the investigators that work with Crimes Against Children Division with the Arkansas State Police, because they're also trained in Child First, because sometimes they have to interview children out in the field. They can't always be brought to the advocacy center. So, and then law enforcement, a lot of law enforcement gets trained in Child First in case they have to be respond first, or just have any agencies that need a better understanding of what the protocol should look like. And so I get to be a part of that. So that's really exciting. Yeah, but that's pretty much on a state level how I get to work.
I guess just to ask a little more in depth about like being a forensic interviewer. So Child First, how long does that training usually last? Do you have to redo Child First every so often? What does that look like?
Okay, so great question. So to be a forensic interviewer, you do need a bachelor's degree in the social work field. So I have my bachelor's in psychology, and I have an associate's degree in criminal justice. And Child First is a week-long, jam-packed training. It's like the phrase trying to drink from a fire hydrant. There's so much information, and you are required to do ongoing trainings because there's so much to being able to interview children. I mean, we interview kids from the time that they're able to talk enough to give a narrative. I've interviewed children about to turn 3 years old who've really surprised me in an interview setting, all the way till they're 17. And sometimes I've interviewed adults that might have disabilities that would thrive doing better in a child-friendly setting. So there's just so much to learn. There's so much that goes into different kind of cases. So there's training that's required beyond Child First. But Child First is the week-long training that you have to go through to be able to interview children. And so for the protocol, if I could go into that a little bit, there's steps like building rapport, a narrative practice, getting the child a chance to walk through something neutral that they can talk about, talking about their families, who they live with, and then giving a child a chance to bring up what they know about coming there. What do you know about being here today? Tell me about what you know about coming here today. And learning about how to facilitate this conversation in a non-leading, open-ended question type of way. You know, we can't be in there like, well, I heard that this happened to you and tell me about this, or did this happen, yes or no? You know, there's so many specific ways that you need to be careful about how you question a child in a way that will allow them to provide as much detail as possible and not be leading in any way.
Switching gears a little, talking about ATU, because of course you graduated from ATU with your bachelor's in psych and then your minor in criminal justice. What was your path right after graduation? Did you like go right into your career? Did you go to graduate school? Did you have any extra like what other trainings did you might do? Anything of that sort?
Okay, so I did not jump straight into my dream job right away after college. Unfortunately, there was a time period where I just felt lost in the world. I didn't know what to do. I love this field of psychology and criminal justice, but it's a broad one. So there are so many different paths that you could take, and I really didn't didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I was applying for all kinds of jobs in the social work field. I eventually got a job working at Friendship Pediatrics. So I got some experience working with children that have developmental delays for a few years. And while I was trying to search for like my long-term job that I wanted to do, as soon as I found out what a child advocacy center was, I was immediately interested, and I knew that that was something that I wanted to pursue. So when the River Valley Child Advocacy Center opened up, they only had 2 people hired, but I would show up and try to volunteer or try to learn more about what they did. And eventually when they started hiring, I was there, but it took a while. And so I'd like to encourage anyone it feels like it's taking long to get your dream job or what you want to do. Sometimes it just takes a little time, but it's out there.
Ah, and so how did you end up hearing about the advocacy center? Was that something while you were working in the pediatrics, or was it just something you heard offhand from maybe colleagues?
So unfortunately, people don't talk that much about advocacy centers and about these types of jobs. It's really something hard for people to swallow, that child abuse is something that is active in the community, and that we see it so often that it keeps our doors open, and that there's lots of jobs that are needed to help with these cases, and it doesn't get talked about that much. So just out in my regular life, I never heard of anyone talk about advocacy centers. Thankfully, I have a family member who worked in a prosecutor's office who told me about child advocacy centers. And so when I found out what that was, and that there was actually a job where I could just talk to the kids and interview the kids, I knew that that was something I was very interested in doing. So I'm very thankful for people like that who will educate others on what's out there. And hopefully, even today, I can shine a little light on the opportunities that are out there, because they really don't get talked about that much.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And so throughout like your educational career, did you kind of know what you wanted to do? I know you talked about once you graduated from ATU, you were kind of lost. You weren't sure exactly. But did you have like some semblance in mind? You were like working with children or working with elderly. Like, did you have any clue, or just not a clue?
I've always been interested in working with children. I knew that I wanted to do something to help people. And like I mentioned, my family member who worked with the prosecutor's attorney, I knew that I was interested by child abuse cases and helping children through stuff like that. So, I thought about working with DHS or juvenile probation. There were so many things that I thought about and that I considered, but I really didn't know for certain what I was going for when I graduated. So it wasn't until, like I said, I heard about child advocacy centers that I really decided that that's what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so you mentioned juvenile probation. Was there something maybe that like drew you more towards advocacy versus like other fields with juveniles? Or I don't know if there's anything in particular. I'm just thinking, but
yeah,
just wondering.
Yeah. I mean, it just really interested me to work with children to help get them justice. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything, the juvenile probation was just something that I was like, well, that's an option. And, I looked into a little bit. But there was just something that really drew me to advocacy centers. For one, it is a nonprofit. And some of the things that we provide to children and their families are not just support through their investigation, but we also help get kids into trauma-focused therapy. Or our advocates do so many things to help the families or connect them to community resources. I love that it works with a big team to come together and help these kids get justice. And then the protocol really interested me, like the way that we can listen and talk to kids and make them feel comfortable enough to talk about something really hard that they might not have ever talked to anybody about before. And so there wasn't anything that really discouraged me from other things, I was just so much just drawn to what work happens at child advocacy centers.
I get that. So switching gears to once again to kind of focus more on like ATU students and like the experiences they're going through, trying to find their paths. Is there any advice you'd give to like your undergraduate self that maybe somebody else might see this and apply to themselves too?
Yeah, so ask questions. Like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I felt like I was kind of just trying to I'm like, I gotta have my life figured out. I'm about to graduate. I need to get a job once I get out of here. And so I asked a lot of professors that I had, what are some job opportunities that I could do in this field? I don't know what I want to do. And getting awareness of what is out there. Like I said, a lot of people have never even heard of a child advocacy center or know that these kind of roles exist. And we have advocates that are staffed at the CAC that are more like caseworkers, and so that's something a psychology student might be interested in doing. And then I would also say just to be patient and not, like I would tell my younger self, not to worry so much about immediately having it all figured out, having your job lined out for you. Sometimes things just take time to open up. Or, when I graduated, the CAC here wasn't even hiring anybody or wasn't even established enough to be able to have full-time employees. And so during the time in between, I was able to work at a place where I gained experience working with children, which now I really appreciate that I had that. And I'm really glad that I was able to do that. And then I felt even more prepared whenever the job did open up. So I would just tell my younger self not to worry or put so much pressure on yourself to immediately have things figured out when you graduate.
That is really great advice. It's something definitely I have applied to myself, so I can most definitely vouch for it. So shifting back to like forensic interviewing, the CAC and like CACs across Arkansas, kind of where do you see your field heading in like the next couple of years?
I'm not sure. I'm hopeful that there can just continue to be a growth and awareness of child advocacy centers and the work that we do. It is a nonprofit organization that heavily relies on grant funding. And I hope that with awareness, and not just here in Russellville, but just across the state, and with people learning about how essential CACs are, I really hope that we continue to just grow support in our communities. And not just awareness of what CACs are, but I hope that our organization can help shine light on child abuse and help people be more aware of it. I kind of touched on how advocacy centers have the forensic interviewing, but we have 4 more components. We have advocacy, medical exams, mental health, and prevention and education. So we have a staff that will go into the community, go to the schools, and teach kids about red flags and body safety and having safe adults. And so I really hope that in the coming years, there would just be more of a light shining on what we do in the topic of child abuse. I also am hopeful that our best practices continue to evolve and grow, and that advocacy centers all through the state will just be better for the children that we serve.
So for people who might be interested in getting involved with the CAC, is there like any public events, any like public awareness events, or just any opportunities with y'all that people can get some like experience or just see what the CAC is about even?
Yes. So we definitely welcome anyone who wants to come tour and learn about us. You have to call ahead because you never know if we're going to have a family scheduled, and confidentiality is a really big thing at the center. So, and with that being said, volunteers, it's really hard to have volunteers because if you're going to help at the advocacy center, you have to do a background check, and, a confidentiality agreement. And we can't just have anybody coming in and, seeing people that are in and out. The volunteer work is limited. We do have internship programs every semester. So getting involved, if you can get an internship through your class, we love our interns. And I love our internship because it really exposes you to the field. You get to watch forensic interviews take place live and see what happens with the investigators on site. There's times where DHS has to come in and intervene, or law enforcement comes in, times when a child might need a medical exam, or and then times that you might get to even see how we work with our therapists and other agencies. So it's a great opportunity to really get exposed to other types of jobs, because the CAC is essentially like a hub for all these agencies to come together and bring the services to one place for the children. So I would say, reach out, ask about an internship. I'm pretty sure that is like the biggest thing. As far as like, every now and then we'll have like a booth in the community just to, spread awareness. But as far as opportunities to just learn more about the CAC, that's really our big opportunity, would be internships.
Mm-hmm. That is a great opportunity. I'm so glad y'all offer those. Something a little more personal. So I know within the field of psychology, there's a lot of burnout. People might suffer from like motivation, like issues. But how do you stay like motivated and trying to like prevent burnout within like being a forensic interviewer and everything you face?
That's a great question, because to be honest, this field is a high burnout rate. You have to love what you do. You have to care about these families, but you can't, at the same time, you cannot carry every case that comes through, or you would go crazy. We deal with, I probably have heard enough horrific stories, than a person should hear in their life. But if I were to carry that home with me every day, then I wouldn't be able to make it. But I think there's two things that immediately come to mind. One is I have an amazing team around me. The staff that works at the Child Advocacy Center here in Russellville is very passionate about what we do, about the kids that we serve, but we're also such a strong support system for each other. We can't go home and be like, this family came in and you won't believe what the kid says. Nobody wants to hear that. And in fact, a lot of times when I tell people what I do for my work, they're like, oh, like that doesn't, they're like, you must be really strong, or just kind of give me, but I love my job and I'm very passionate about what I do, but it makes people uncomfortable. So you can't just like vent about work to anybody. So that's why having such a supportive team is so helpful. We have laughed and cried and gotten angry over cases, and they have really helped me with not feeling the burnout, being able to just talk with them. And then the other thing is, it might sound cliche, but truly the kids, it blows my mind the resilience that children have. How there are some children that I've talked to that have faced more adversity, more abuse than most people adults have suffered in their adult life or in their whole life. And how a child can still turn around and become like, and trust an adult, or be strong enough to make it through, or turn out to be a great, adult when they, grow up. And so the children really keep me motivated. I love getting to be that person to allow them to feel comfortable enough to talk to me about something, like I mentioned earlier, they might not have shared with anybody. And the studies and research show that most of the time, people don't even disclose abuse until their adult lives, if they decide to disclose at all. So most people that are facing abuse don't even talk about it, or they will deny it. And there are a lot of times in my job where a kid comes in and they're not ready to talk, and that can be really hard. But I love just being a person who can allow that space for a child to have that opportunity to get that next step toward justice. It is very fulfilling when a child can open up and feel like they are heard and listened to. And then, hopefully, sadly, it doesn't always happen, but hopefully, our prosecuting attorneys, our law enforcement, and everybody else can come together and we can see that the perpetrator is charged and that the family can get closure. And that's always a great feeling, too. And then or just from the child coming and talking with me, getting them plugged into trauma-focused therapy, getting them on the road to healing, after dealing with an investigation. So those are all things that really keep me motivated and keep me from feeling burnout. It is hard, and there are times that it's exhausting listening to to these kind of things over and over again, but I love the work that I get to do and be a part of.
And it's genuinely amazing. So asking a little more about the CAC. So do you guys have therapists within the CAC that the child just immediately can turn around? Well, not immediately, of course, but get referred to within the CAC, or do you guys usually do referrals out? Because I know some programs are different.
Yeah. So we are actually working on hiring some River Valley Child Advocacy Center therapists, like staff. We are working on getting people on site that can provide counseling. We actually have a few staff members that are finishing up school that are ready to be therapists for the children that we serve. But for now, we contract with multiple therapists in the community and in our counties. And so, but we're able to refer them out and cover the cost of therapy for the families. And I might have mentioned this earlier, I'm not sure, but all of the services that we provide, therapy, the medical exams, our prevention education, speaking engagements, all of this is at no cost to the families or the community. The last thing that a family should be worried about when there's allegations of abuse with their child is how they're going to pay for a medical or a sexual assault exam, or getting their child the help that they need. Going to therapy can be really expensive, so all these services are without cost to the family.
Mm-hmm. Which is so amazing. Do you see this field growing? Is it expanding over the state? Has it grown any since you've even started at the CAC? Can you tell? Do you see any difference?
I believe it has grown substantially. I mean, just from the time that I've started, which was about 6 years ago, I know that there have been multiple centers that have been established throughout the state just within the time that I've been working. And even our center, we, like I mentioned, we cover Johnson County, which is kind of, with some areas around Johnson County, it's kind of a drive for a family to come to Russellville. So we were able to open up a satellite or an alternate location in Clarksville. So we have 2 centers, where if a report comes in the Johnson County area, they can have a shorter drive to our satellite office, and where we have we have a forensic interviewer and an advocate staffed over there. So I've seen lots of satellite offices that advocacy center's been able to open up, or areas where it was too far of a drive for people to go, so they have opened up their own advocacy center. The Russellville Center wasn't even open until 2018. So before, people were having to go all the way to Fort Smith or Conway or Little Rock. But the agencies that worked these cases saw that there was a need for an advocacy center, and we have seen it. I wish I could remember off the top of my head. Just this year, we've seen over 300 kids for just the year. We've seen a few thousand since opening and provided services. It really is, like I said, something that is actively going on, and people just aren't aware of how often like we're seeing kids that have investigations going on. So yeah, I've definitely seen growth in this field and with advocacy centers, and I hope that it continues to grow, and that people are able to hire more staff, because we talked a little bit about burnout. There's limited positions available for interviewers and advocates, and it can be hard taking on multiple families. So I hope that we'll continue to get that support from the community and from our grants to be able to really provide the services that kids need.
And so, for anybody who might be looking into becoming a forensic interviewer, especially after hearing all this information about it, how would you suggest like their first steps? Their like how should they go about it?
I would say find a child advocacy center that's local to you. Ask to just come tour. Ask about internship opportunities. And I mean, even though it's hard for us to take on volunteers, if you really are passionate about it, I mean, that's how I started off, was like, let me volunteer, please. Or like, what can I do to help? Or is there anything, and see what opportunities are there. And then, like for me, before I was hired, I was able to go to Child First because I was a potential person that could get hired. So my now boss was able to refer me to go to this training. You can't just sign up to go to Child First. You have to have an affiliation with like an investigative agency or a child advocacy center. And so I would ask about training opportunities to at advocacy centers and just learning more about them. But I will highlight again, definitely the internship.
100%. Stephanie, thank you again so much for coming in and talking about what you do as a forensic interviewer, all the information. I am positive this will help ATU students who are looking for their paths at ATU like you once were, and even ATU students who hadn't considered this beforehand. For listeners and viewers, we hope you found today's conversation very helpful in trying to find what to do at ATU and your own career path. Be sure to tune in next time, where we will talk to another ATU alum about their career and how they got there and their experiences at ATU. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.